Welcome to the running journey. Welcome to the running journey.
Welcome to the running journey.
Welcome
to the running journey. Running journey, yeah. Welcome to The Running Journey, a transformative podcast telling the story of two brothers faced with a very tough time in their lives that decided to do something about it, get healthy, get fit, and start jogging. The Running Journey will take you through half marathons, Ironmans, ultra marathons, and their attempt at qualifying for the Boston Marathon.
Don't forget 5Ks. Sorry.
We're certainly not going to forget 5Ks, Charlie. This is The Running Journey. Listen to us while you run.
That's a great idea.
Okay, I think we have our intro.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to The Running Journey. I'm your host, Rob Tatro. This is my brother, Charlie. Thanks for joining us today on what has been and will continue to be the journey, our story when we started, embarked on this journey and embracing running, putting one foot in front of the other, and why we're doing it. Today's episode focuses a little bit, episode 3 focuses a little bit on the story after the first marathon that we ran together. So I really enjoy this part of the story because it's a key time in our journey. It's a time that we probably had the most amount of improvement. One of the times that we had the most amount of improvement. Running was super fun. It still is very fun, but for me, this is kind of when I was discovering it, because although, we got back from that Tucson marathon and we did a sub 4-hour marathon, and that was awesome. And I was like pumped. And I remember that weekend and my son was there, and we went to the zoo and we went to watch, what did we go watch? Ghostbusters at the theater.
Ghostbusters, not too bad.
I fell asleep during the movie. It was basically, I call these $40 naps when I take one of my kids to a movie. It's a cheap nap, right? Take a 2-hour nap, $40. It was like, for me, it was both exhilarating, and yet I've talked about how I had a huge letdown, and how I had like kind of the arrival fallacy where you train, and you think when you arrive somewhere, you're going to get this reward, but you actually don't get the reward that you're looking for. So I had a bit of a downer after. Do you recall how you felt after you ran?
Yeah. So after Phoenix is one of those times where, it was less of a downer than I've had in other marathons. Like if I compare it to the one that I ran recently, the one we ran
LA.
in LA in November. So I had already planned out my next marathon, and I had planned out that I was going to do 4 hours and then 3:45 and then 3:30. Like I had like a 3-year plan in place. So it was like, to me, that marathon was just like a step in that process. So I didn't really have a downer, and I kind of, for some reason, I didn't take any rest after. I just started running the next day, but my legs were stiff after. Anyways, so for me, it would just kept on running, except after the only thing is I felt really slow because it takes a lot out of your legs running a marathon. So.
Yeah, it's something people don't mention often, right? Like you think, oh, I could run 26 miles. I'm healthy. I'm fit. My legs are strong. I have great cardio. But like it takes a chunk out of you to run 26 miles at that pace, at that effort. It's not just at the pace,
exactly.
It's more the effort that we did.
Yeah, exactly. It was a hard effort for us.
Yeah, the effort for me was close to my hardest effort marathon for sure, if not, because I was struggling to keep up with you, and it was a very hard effort. And it's funny, the next day, you've done this a few times. Like you went out, I couldn't get out of bed, and you went out and you did like 3 miles or 6 miles. I forget what you jogged that morning in Tucson, right? You jogged the next morning, did you not?
Yeah, I felt actually I think I took that marathon a little easy because it was my first marathon in like 3 years and or 5 years, whatever it was. And because I felt pretty fresh even the next day. I'm looking at it. So I ran 6 miles the next day, 1 hour, so 10 minute per mile pace. Yeah, I felt okay. Looks like
I was hungover because I got
I
had some rumbos in the hot tub that night. It was I wasn't jogging the next day, but I also like, I think, and I've said this, I think that you held up and waited for me a little bit, and that kind of spared you the, I think you probably had 3, 4, 5 minutes in you to chop off the last 6 miles off that marathon, but you ended up staying with me till mile 25 or something. And so
yeah, right till 25. We had talked about it before and said that, as a benefit kind of.
yeah, and I'm appreciative of that, but that's probably why you felt fresher, right?
Yeah, I think I like 155 was my average heart rate for that marathon. Usually when I go all out, it's close to 170. So I think it was hard because my legs were dead at the end, right? But yeah, I could have gone a little faster. Maybe
And
I was in good shape.
Marathons aren't easy.
No, marathons are hard.
So okay, so we finished that marathon. You're in a pretty good spot. I immediately, like, that. It was either that night or the next day when I was like, what do I do now? What now? I remember just being like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Because in my mind, running a sub 4 was like something that was going to happen in 5 years or 3 years, or I never thought it would happen that quick. So then I was like, okay, now what? And then you said you should run an Ironman, and I was like, huh. And you had this buddy Bryce, who had done an Ironman and who had nothing but good things to say about it and about his coach. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. I didn't tell anyone this, but the moment you told me I should do an Ironman, and this is how I operate with many things, I was like, I'm doing that. That's what I will do. And I thought about it. I Googled it. I came home. I started searching on the phone. I started kind of dropping the idea with my wife to see if, because one thing that I've learned is that the spouse is critical in all this. And if you are married, your life partner, your spouse is critical in understanding why you're doing it, what motivates you, and for them to be supportive, right? So I find it's a lot better to involve them in the decisions than to let them know that, by the way, I'm doing 4 hours jog on Saturday, and deal with it, right? It's a lot better to say, hey, I was thinking of scheduling, blah blah blah. So I kind of did that.
we've had lots of conversations about like timing and things like that. So we kind of have our routine where I always go in the morning, and then the expectation is she can get a workout in or whatever in the afternoon. So you mentioned about how you made that decision right away. I'm kind of like the opposite. I think I like change my mind like 4 or 5 times before I find, and then when I finally decide, it's like, then I'm all in there. But
Yeah, I think for me, I like to commit to something, and then I can't pull back. You can't, like, if you commit, it's like I wanted to do, I had when my dad got cancer, I also decided I was going to do a PhD. And I was like, I want to do a PhD. I want to do a PhD. And I just decided I was going to do it. So I just signed up. And then I was like, holy shit. Okay, now I'm committed to doing this PhD. So now I'm about a year and a half in, and I'm, halfway done my courses. I'm doing one course at a time. And it's like I've committed to it. So now I'm obviously doing it. It's a lot more work than I thought it would be, but I'm doing it. So for me, it was like once I had signed up and registered. So I believe it was like, I think is it $895 or $950 or something to sign up for the Ironman? Am I close? I think it's $1,000 US, give or take.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I knew that it was enough of a commitment that I was like, okay, like, you're signing up for this, you're going to do it. And then you said you should get a coach, because I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And then I reached out to Patrick, and that's kind of when I started working with him, January 2022. And that's right kind of after we got back from Tucson, a little bit after Christmas, and then I was serious. I was getting involved, and when I remember thinking, shit, that's in June. I should probably do another race between now and June. And I enjoyed running so much. And that's when I don't know, I don't remember exactly how this went, but I think I texted you and I said, hey, we should do an easy marathon. We should try to do an easy marathon, right? Or something like that. Or I think I just sent you the link, America's Easiest Marathons. And I think it was like top 10 easiest marathons in the US. And I just sent you the link, and you're like, and I said, we should do this one in Vegas. And you're like, yeah, I've already signed up for it, or something like that, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I had signed up, but I had already looked at the same website, and I had already, because in my head I was like, so 4 or 5 months, like April sounded like a good time, because then then I could get one marathon in, because my plan again was 4, then 3:45, and then 3:30, and I kind of had like 4-month intervals or 4 or 5-month intervals where I wanted to like shave 15 minutes off to eventually get to 3. So I had decided April was when I was going to try to do 3:45, and I was looking for an easier one because I don't know, because it seemed training was tough at the time, winter here. So yeah, I was looking to do that.
Yeah, so you're like, I think you probably almost had a 3:45 in you in Tucson. So I think 3:45 would have been like not that much of a stretch for you to do like a few months later. But I remember you're like, yeah, let's do it. And I think you said, yeah, Cheryl's coming. And I said, okay, Michelle will come.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, Vegas was a nice place to go.
Yeah, you can go. You could watch some shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for like I showed up 3 or 4 days early, and yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a sec.
Wore me, yeah. Anyways, it wore me out a little bit.
Yeah, so we're like, okay, so let's sign up for Vegas. So I signed up. It's the REVEL series, and if you don't know anything about the REVEL series, it's like, I think their claim to fame is they're a for-profit business that is trying to make marathons fun and easy and try to get personal best for people. So they have a whole bunch
and
of
qualify for Boston. Like,
yeah,
so
they want to get a high qualifier.
If you want to qualify for Boston, that's the place to go. It's like 35%, 40%.
Yeah, they have like a ton of aid stations, just a ton of support. It's more expensive. They charge like double or triple the price as the other races, but they provide a phenomenal experience, I think.
Yeah.
Like, I'm biased because I've done 3 of their races, I think. Was the Tucson one a REVEL series? No,
Tucson. No.
Just the LA one. And yeah, so I think they provide a phenomenal experience. So we signed up for it. We're going to do it. So now I had signed up for the Ironman. I forget if you knew that I was doing it then, but I was like, I decided.
Yeah, no, I knew already. You had already told me, and then it was like maybe end of January. I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
Or maybe mid-January. I don't know, somewhere around there.
Okay. And we're like, okay, makes sense to do. And my coach was like, well, okay, like, you want to do another marathon and an Ironman? I said, yeah, just fit it into the training, right? I figured, what's the big deal? I'm training for an Ironman. Like, a marathon's easier than an Ironman. So it was like, okay, yeah, we'll do this marathon in April. April ended up being a good time because the weather was really nice in Las Vegas. And my wife ended up ripping her ACL and meniscus and all that. So she was supposed to come and run it. She was going to come run a half or maybe do the full because she was running quite a bit at that time. Yeah. And she ended up ripping, and that was like 2 weeks after her surgery. So she didn't come to Vegas, but you and Cheryl were there. You said you were there, a couple of days? You went 2-3 days before?
Yeah, I think so. Those races are on Saturdays, correct?
I think it was a Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we flew in on the Wednesday, got there Wednesday night. I wanted some time to acclimatize, I guess. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, so we showed up Wednesday. We did a bunch of stuff Thursday, a bunch of stuff Friday, and so like.
Didn't you get like 35,000 steps or something, or 20,000 steps, like just walking around?
I think 26,000 both days or something. And well, on the Friday I did like a 2-mile run, and on the Thursday I did like a 2-mile run or something. But then we ended up going to see so many things. It was fun, but I don't think it helped me. So yeah, I learned a bunch of things there. And then you showed up, I think, right the day before.
I showed up Friday night, yeah.
Because we had a good dinner. We had a good dinner there.
That was fun.
That was good, yeah.
Showed up to the dinner, and I was like, I need carbs. So I think I had like tacos. And
did you order 2 meals or something?
I ordered 2 meals, but then you ordered the fries, and we just kept ordering fries. I think he bought like 3 more orders of fries just to get some potatoes in us. And I felt great that night. I was like ready to go. And I was just coming back from a trip with my family in Minneapolis.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think it was right after spring break. Am I mistaken? I think it was right after spring break or during spring break. Might have been the weekend of spring break. So I drove to Minneapolis, drove back all night, got back at like 2 a.m. or something, or 3 or 4 a.m, and then flew to Vegas. Connection got delayed. I didn't get there till the night. So I was so tired. When I got back from dinner, we got back from dinner. I was like, I'll just go lay down in bed. And if I sleep, I sleep. If I don't sleep, I don't sleep. I fell asleep at like 7:45 or 8 o'clock.
The night before?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I've never gotten more than like like surprisingly, I've never gotten more than 3 hours of sleep before a marathon. I don't think like it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you get
that's
nervous
awesome.
or you just can't sleep or something,
I'm too
right?
excited. I'm like almost borderline like insomniac. Like I have a hard time falling asleep and stuff. So when I'm excited, it's even harder. So
Yeah, I can sleep. I've always been a sleeper out of the two of us. I'm the guy who can crush a nap on a plane or in the corner of the room here, whatever. All I need is a floor and a jacket and I can sleep. But I really, really thought that I discovered like plutonium by accident
yeah,
because I was like, okay, I know where the solution is next time. I just stay up the night before, go to
two
bed
nights
really
before.
early, 2 nights before, go to bed really
Yeah.
early, and boom, Bob's your uncle. I didn't end up doing that for any other races, but it really worked for Vegas. I was so fresh and historic. I've been to Vegas a lot in my life, and you know what they say about pumping oxygen in the casinos or whatever. Like it's real. I can tell you it's real because I never sleep more than 2 or 3 hours in Vegas per night. At the most, I could get maybe 4 or 5 hours. And that night, I slept. Like I woke up on my own at what do we have to catch a shuttle at 3:30 or something like that?
We got up pretty early. I think it was
Yeah, so I think
3.
we were up at
We were up
3.
at 3. Yeah, yeah.
So, but I
Had
kind of
our
woke up
had
on
our
my own at
oatmeal and
3, but that means I got 7 hours of sleep, right? So I was like, I was fresh. And that's Vegas sleep. So that's like double sleep, right? If you're sleeping in Vegas, that's like 12 hours of sleep. So I felt really, really good going into that race. And man, we had a good day, a great temperature. That was just a fun day.
yeah. So before you got there, I actually went to the race expo
Oh
the
yeah,
day
yeah.
before, and this actually had a pretty big influence on what happened for me the next day because we listened to they have a speaker, Coach Paul, Revel Series, and
Same guy who did our LA one.
yeah, same guy.
Okay.
So we he talked about kind of strategizing over the course. So the course is a bit more downhill at the beginning and a bit less downhill at the end, and he kind of went through each mile. But what really wasn't that valuable because I was pretty prepared for that. Was like how he and I don't know now, I don't know that I would agree with the strategy, but at the time it made a lot of sense to me. So he said just go out and run it like a 7. So 9, so 10 is being chased by a bear and 7 is just uh is pretty hard but not super hard. So in my head I was like, no, I'm gonna go easy like 5. I don't want to burn myself, I want to conserve. So I went a little bit harder than so it kind of increased my goal right before. So when I got there, I had no idea what my goal was like 3:45, and then you texted me and you said, and I asked you what your goal, and your coach had said like 3:30 around or something. And then and then this guy had talked and he's like, go 7. I'm like, okay, maybe I can. It's downhill, etc. So we kind of changed a little bit what we were going for, and it ended up being pretty good. So
Yeah, and I
we'll
remember
talk
that
about that
night,
in a few minutes.
that Friday night, you went to the thing. You're all like, "What time are you landing?" I was like, "I don't know, not too early." He's like, "You need your bib. You need to pick that up. You need to go." I was like, "Figure it out." It's like, "Okay,
Yeah,
I'll pick it up for you." So you were like, I was like so not organized and not aware of the stuff I had to do, and you're like, "Okay, I got your bib. I took care of it. You're gonna be able to
it's not a
run this
big
race."
deal. Yeah.
I know, but I was just like, you were definitely more. So I was still at that point. I think I weighed about 220 still. Like I had lost some weight, but I was still pretty heavy. Like 215 or 220, I still weighed. So that was like for people who weighed that much, I think that was a pretty fast time for me for sure. And now you probably weighed over 200, I would imagine, or had you lost some weight already?
I was about 200 at the
Yeah.
time.
So I probably weighed
I would guess.
215.
Yeah.
215 is probably what I weighed. So it's still like it's still pretty big, pretty heavy. Although I do have a wide frame, so I remember you saying, "Oh, it's going to help you on the downhill. The extra weight's going to help you on the downhill," and it did. So the strategy. So I remember you saying, like you had really thought this through by the time I got there because we talked about it at dinner that night because we hadn't really strategized much right before.
No.
And you were like, "Okay, I went to the course. I saw Coach Paul, and here's what we're going to do." And you had mapped out the pace we're going to go and how we're going to increase. We wanted to do a negative split again, but it was just such an easy start. Do you remember that start up in the mountains?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It was cold.
It's
Cold.
blur. It was cold. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So we were in those mountains.
We took
It
the
was
bus.
cold. Yeah.
Remember, we took the bus. We got dropped off. We had to walk up that hill. Like there was a
That was
long
Vegas.
walk.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then there was the bus, the yellow bus, when we got to the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And then we ended up running kind of back down that hill.
Yeah.
And then we got on this highway, and remember there were it was very downhill. It's like the first mile or second mile was ridiculously downhill.
Yeah.
Absurdly downhill. And it was
so that one's a bit more downhill at the beginning and then less downhill at the end. So the last few miles are kind of flat. So it kind of feels like you're going uphill really a little bit, but
it did. Yeah. I remember it did. And that's kind of how I felt, but we were like so far ahead of 3:45 pace. At what point, like kind of somewhere mile 7 or 8 or something, 3:30 became our new target, right? Like it didn't happen right off the bat, but at some point we were like, we started counting by how far ahead are we of 3:30 or how far behind 3:30 are we instead of 3:45, right? Does that ring a bell?
Yeah. So at some point we decided we were doing every mile under 8 minutes, right? And so at some point we were like, we talked to each other, maybe more on 4 or 5, and we said we're going to try to do sub 3:30, right? Like this is easy.
How are you feeling? Feeling really good. You really good. Okay, yeah, 3:30 is possible. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up our splits here, but yeah, go ahead.
No, take your time, pull them up. I'll tell the story that morning when, or maybe I'll tell the story that night when we finished a marathon and we went and watched curling. We went and watched curling. For those Americans that are watching this podcast, it's a Canadian sport. It's one of our national sports. We saw 3-time world champion Brad Gushu representing Canada at the World Championships, and they were playing Slovakian team, if I'm not mistaken. They cleaned the floor with them, and I remember just thinking, nobody's watching this. It was the World Championships. There were like 100 people in the theater or whatever, and we were like first row. And I was wearing my Canadian onesie. It was a fun way to celebrate after running sub 3:30, 3:24, 3:26. I don't even remember.
Well, mine was 3:25. I think you were 3:23 something.
3:23. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I was like 2.5 minutes behind you. So yeah, let's talk about. I'm just got my splits here. So is this April 4th?
April 4th sounds about right, because they would have been spring break. Yeah. So that's kind of the morning where I figured out my routine, my oatmeal routine and my banana routine too.
Yeah. So here I've got the first first mile we did slow 8:13, and then a bunch of miles at like low 7s, 7:20, 7:30, things like that. One slow mile 6.
I remember that when you went, there was like a loop you had to go up.
No.
That's is that the one where the water?
The porta potty.
Oh, the porta potty. We took a piss.
Yeah.
We thought we'd get tossed.
And then the lineup, and I was a little upset after that. So the mile after was 7:02.
Yeah, because
I think I was
turned it on.
Yeah, no, I was just like the delay was so long. I was a little upset for some reason, and then kept pushing the 7:20, 7:30 miles up to mile 13, and then I slowed down quite a bit here. It gets less downhill, but still around 8, just under 8-minute miles from 13 to 22. And then at 22 is where I think you started going ahead of me. Actually, 22 and 23 were at 20. And then I think at that point I was like, no, I go ahead, like I'm kind of done. And you went ahead, and I had an 8:58, 8:26, 8:24. So slowed down quite a bit at the end, but it's part of the terrain, and maybe I went out a little too fast. I'm not sure.
But like, to put things in perspective, I don't think I had ever done a 7-minute mile at that point. Like, so that I remember thinking, holy smokes, we are zooming. Like we are. Like,
yeah.
It was only like 5-6 months before that we did I did a 3:56, right? So
was it the first time you wore the Alpha Flies?
Oh yeah. The cheater shoes. Yeah, the cheater shoes. I bought them that week in Minneapolis because I couldn't find any in Winnipeg. This was during COVID, so there was supply chain issues. I went to Minneapolis, went to the Mall of America with my family that Tuesday or Wednesday, like a few days before. I went to the store. My family was all waiting. I said, I just need shoes. I need the best shoes you have. And the coach had told me which ones, and I bought them, tried them on. They fit. And then like that night in Vegas, like in the hotel room, I was like, holy smokes. I tried them on and I was like bouncing. And I think I texted him like, this feels like I'm cheating. And then that morning, it was like, every step you felt like you were getting like pushed and like, cause the carbon plate is just, it bounces and bounces. And I was just like, holy smokes, felt like I was cheating. So it felt for me, it felt like I was zooming a million miles an hour. So it was like, that was cool. Cause I think 8-minute miles would bring us to 3:30, right? You need to run 8-minute miles for a 3:30.
Yeah, 3:30 on 8 minutes, 3:30 on the nose.
Yeah.
So I did 3:25, so that was like 7:40 around there, and then you were like 7:30.
Yeah.
So I had my like $100 shoes for that one. I liked them, but anyways,
you thought I was crazy for buying the cheater shoes. Not crazy, but you didn't think it could possibly.
No, I knew they were good. I had read about them, but I was like, it wasn't. I don't know. I liked my shoes already.
You're too stubborn.
Yeah,
too stubborn to accept that it was possible that I had an advantage on you.
So those shoes, what do you think? Like, to me, they're like 30 seconds a mile.
I'm not. It's mentally, it's something, and on top of whatever it is physically, like I'd love to know what it actually is, but I don't think 30s. It's for sure at least 15, 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah. I mean, but I think it depends on the person. And to me, the Vaporflies are even faster. You've never tried them.
I'll try them my next race.
Well, for shorter, like I think the Alpha Flies, I would prefer the Alpha Flies on a long one because it's kind of just more. It's a little bit wider, more stable, and when you get tired. But I think the Vaporflies are even faster. I guess it depends on the person, though.
I'm gonna put a note here: Vaporfly versus Alpha Fly discussion, and we'll bring an expert guest to debate it for a future episode.
Yeah. Okay. There's tons on it, but yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know the answer. I just know how unbelievable I felt that morning with my cheater shoes, running a cheater marathon, and like killing 7-minute miles, and 7.5-minute miles, and I'd never run a 7-minute mile. Like all my training, like I wasn't even close to running at that pace. So for me, it was
But that's a thing that is very. That's not just like the downhill. Like you'd be surprised what you can accomplish in a race, even if you haven't trained at that pace. So like, especially if you go by feel, people like. Don't look at your training and say, I've never gone that fast and I can't do it. Like when I did my half marathon PR, I did 1:29, and that's like 6:50 or something a mile. And I had run a total of 5 miles. This was a flat course, right? So I'd run a total of about 5 or 6 miles in my training up to that, to get to that level. So I think always run by feel in races, in my opinion. Don't look at your watch. I mean, you can look at it a bit, but if you want to if you want to achieve results that are like incredible results that you would never expect, go by feel, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in another episode, and it's like because there's so many variables in play when you're on your treadmill, like you're running at whatever you're running at. There's so many variables that can improve or disprove your conditions when you're outside. So that's another reason why you should run by feel, because that day, maybe a 6-minute mile is not that impressive, or maybe it's phenomenally impressive, and maybe you thought you'd do it at 7, but you could actually do it at 6:30. So the kind of the RPE, as my coach calls it, the rate of perceived exertion, is something that he thinks we should follow, and that's kind of what you're saying. Follow how you feel. You've always been a big feel guy.
In a race, I mean,
in a race, yeah, obviously.
So here's there's so many factors why you can run faster in a race that that your mind doesn't really understand. One is the excitement. 2 is you've been training really, really hard. So the miles that you're putting when you're training hard leading up to a marathon are a lot harder. Then when you start tapering, the tapering just, if you're doing that part right, the tapering just makes you so much faster, and you don't know what that is.
That's a good point.
So there's so many things that that can push you to higher heights on race day if you do things right.
The 6 cups of coffee.
So I don't usually eat many carbs before, but then
The gels,
carb loading and all that. Like there's so many things, and
you're
so
optimizing for one very brief period of time, right?
Yeah, it's like a magic trick that you're doing. A race should be like a magic trick almost. Like you're doing, anyways.
We'll put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't be limited by thinking about what you've done in the past as far as pacing. Go by feel on race day, but don't go too hard. That's the other rule. Don't go too hard.
Especially if you're like me and you, where you're in the mode where you're improving, right?
Yeah.
Because if you kind of started jogging and you're like me, you did one, and then you're thinking of doing another, and then you're thinking of doing another, you have no real idea what your time is, because you're training in between and you're improving dramatically. I went from a 5-hour marathon to a 3-hour marathon in just over a year. So had I just thought, oh, this is what I can do, then I would have never had my PRs, right? Or I never, because if you're training and improving, you really are clueless how hard you can go on race day.
Yeah, like so my 2 best races of all time, I don't think I looked at my pace. I mean, I was aware at some point, but I maybe looked at it twice.
And that's obviously your LA qualifier and your Boston qualifier in LA, and then the Vegas race.
No, I would say the half marathon we did in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
the 129 we did right before. Like, so those probably 2 best races of my life, and I barely looked at the paces the entire time.
Yeah, you won both of those. You were on fire that half marathon. I was like going progressively faster, and you kept pulling away from me in the last 2 miles. Like you had juice in the tank for sure.
Sorry, back to Vegas though. So Vegas, mile 22, you were, I was like, I'm struggling here. I was telling you, and you were like, oh, I feel great. I feel great. So at that point, I think I told you, can you stay with me a little bit longer? Like, because it was,
I think you said that at 20, you said that, right? And I stayed 2 or 3 more miles, I think.
And it was really small. It was like our 2 slowest miles of the race. And then I said, okay, I'm good now. I'll make it.
And I think I asked you, you're going to break 3:30, right? Because like at that point I was like, hey, we got to break 3:30. Like, but you had such a cushion built up. Like you could do 9.5 minute miles, I think, and you would have been fine, right? So I was like, you're going to do 3:30, right? You said, oh, absolutely. Okay, see you.
Yeah. And then the whole time, like, you're running away from me. I'm like, can I muster up some energy here and try to chase him down? And no way, 0 chance. But I thought about it.
So that's how I felt in LA. Like you were gone ahead of me, and I was like, can I catch up to him? I don't want to finish behind him. Like I don't want to, but you know what? He's whatever. I know exactly how you felt. And man, and then to finish and then just be on the strip. Like we finished the marathon. They had like a beer garden there or whatever, and you're on the strip, and it's like, what was it, 10 a.m. or whatever, and you're just all right, let's go, full day ahead of us.
And then we went to that restaurant behind Harrah's there. What's it called?
And not the
Anyways, it was lots of food.
Yeah, lots of food. Loaded up on carbs, milkshakes, whatever. It was good. It was a good part of our journey for sure. And then just realizing, I remember calling our parents and being like, holy smokes, like 3:23, 3:25, like, wow, I guess like it was over a half hour in 4 months or 5 months, right? Or 6, whatever it was, 6 months.
No, it wasn't even that long. It's 5 months.
5 months.
Sorry. So January, February, March, 4 months.
4 months. And it's like, it's not like we went from 5.5 to 5 or 5 to 4.5, right? To go from like 3:56 to 3:23 is, for me, that blew me away. Like how much the power of the human mind and the power of the body and the progress I had done.
Consistency, like just keep doing it every day, you know? Yep.
Because we were on the, like, I was jogging every single day. I don't think I was taking days off. Then maybe I was taking the Sunday off. I don't remember, but pretty much 6 or 7 days a week I was jogging and or swimming and or biking, because I had an Ironman coming up. But it was like, just for me, that was a bit of a turning point where I was like, holy, like, it's unbelievable what I can do here. So I knew that getting on the tread. So this morning, for example, I don't know what you had to do today, but I had to do hills.
It was a rough one, but yeah.
What did you have today?
So had four sets of 6 minutes. So 20-minute warm up, and then 4 sets of 6 minutes hard at like 7:30 pace, and then 4 minutes easy, but on the snow and outside. So yeah, it was hard for me.
Yeah, the snow, it's hard. I don't know if I find myself always having a hard time to jog at a fast pace outside if I'm not in a race. I mean, I'm sure I could do it, but I find it harder than on the treadmill. You just punch the speed you want to jog, and you're forced to jog at that speed, right? So I had hills today. I never run hills. I had to do 5% incline, and I did it at 8.2. So what is that? 7 minutes, what is that?
7 something.
8.2 is 7:19.
Yeah.
So on a 5% incline, and now it was only 2 minutes with 3 minutes off, but I had to do that 8 times. So kind of a similar, like that. Those 2 minutes hard were extremely hard for me. And I just remember, so the reason I'm mentioning that is there are days where you're like, many days, it's just like the jog's a walk in the park and you're just kind of enjoying it. And then you have days like today where it's like, it's a battle, and you got to work through. But I bumped into one of my staff after Ivan, and he goes, how does it feel? And he caught me right as I got off the treadmill. Right. He was getting on the treadmill. I was getting off. And I was like, I feel unbelievable. I just felt unreal. And he's like, better than a cup of coffee? And I was like, 1,000 times better. I feel like I could, and this was this morning, and I just felt like it felt so good. And it reminds me, that's kind of when I started feeling this, is back in when I was doing around that Vegas time, where I was starting to jog a lot and starting to get the benefits mentally and starting to see my body change. And the VO2 max, like, do you track your VO2 max? That's something you track? So it's a function on my iWatch, and I don't know how.
Like, I think the test is just run as fast as you can, 1.5 miles. I think that's the test.
Well, I don't
do that very often.
Yeah, no, I think it tracks I think it does it automatically because it's got my heart rate and my pace.
Yeah, right? But it probably just uses that formula off the like, it's not an accurate one. It's just using that.
Okay.
Formula,
so
probably.
It tells me that I'm at 54, and I know that I went 53, 52, 51, 50. It's been slowly, but I think back then I was in the mid 40s. Yeah. Or maybe high 40s, but mid 40s. And it's just like, I could sense the progress. I could sense the change. And it was like, it was pretty exciting to leave Vegas, because I didn't have the letdown. In Vegas, I did not have a letdown at all, probably because I already knew what I was doing next, which was
you knew the Ironman. So yeah, that wasn't even like it wasn't even that important to you, Vegas, like, because you had the Ironman going. Like, I mean, I remember it felt like it was just a secondary thing for you at the time. Right?
It kind of was. It kind of was, because like nothing was happening at this. You had it as part of your plan.
Yeah,
right? So
me, it was a big deal. Yeah. And actually, the training was a real slog for me. Like, it was so cold the last year in Winnipeg, and like running every day. Like, it was cold all the way up to March, April. So,
like, for those of you that aren't in Winnipeg, just real quick tangent before you go on, like, minus 30 degrees Celsius is common occurrence in the winter. And I don't mean like once in a while. It's like always minus 20 at least in the winter. Every single morning that you were jogging in minus 15 on warm days, or minus 10 on warm days, but like minus 30 on many days, right?
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm surprised, because I was doing a lot of really slow running, January, February. Pretty much everything I did was slow. I did maybe a couple in March. It started being a bit nicer, where I could, the surface was a little better. I did a couple tempo runs. Like, I barely worked out, but I still improved by 50 minutes just by doing it every day, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, you don't have to have phenomenal workouts. You just have to have work. You just have to be consistent. Because I, like, I feel like I didn't have really any special workouts that during that whole period, and I still improved by 30 minutes, right? So
It's unreal. It's pretty, yeah, because you were just doing it by kind of winging it, right? I'm sure you read a lot on it.
I had very low expectations for that one because I was just like, training was so hard. I was just like, well, I'll do the best I can. I was just kind of doing, and
Do you think mentally you were, do you think you were maybe hoping that you would beat your expectations, and like, is that possibly what you were doing by setting kind of lower expectations?
no, I think I had really low expectations because the training was just not going well. And then I felt like I was not improving at the time. Like, so sometimes you get into those periods and it happens where you just don't improve. So that might be because you're overtraining, or maybe that's what I was doing. Maybe I was training too much. I don't know, but I felt like I wasn't improving at all. So I had very low expectations until that Coach Paul the day before, and then you texted me saying you're going to try to do 3:30. That's where my expectations went up a little bit.
It's a little cocky, on my part, now that I think about it. Like, I trimmed 23 minutes, but I mean, Coach thought I could do it because I started training a lot. Like, that was kind of building up to the Ironman. So I guess he was right. Coach was right, and cheater shoes and downhill and all that added to almost a minute a mile better than before. No, more than a minute a mile better than before, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that so after you finished Vegas, so for you it was like a piece in the 3-year, 4-year, but now you had kind of jumped a layer, right? You were supposed to do 3:45 and you just jumped right to 3:30. In fact, almost remember when we were on the bus coming back? I don't know if you remember this. We sat with a lady and we asked her how she was doing, and she said she qualified for Boston in her run.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy smokes, that's unbelievable. What did you qualified for Boston? I was like, and she's like, what did you do? I said 3:23. She's like, how old are you? I was like, I'm 40. And she's like, you only missed it by 13 minutes. And I was like,
Well,
what?
13 minutes.
But I mean, that felt like, holy like, it's within
Well, because
reach.
you could have done probably a couple minutes faster, you thought, because I slowed you down, maybe
1 or 2
2 or 3.
minutes. So I was
Yeah.
maybe at 11 minutes away, kind of thing, which is I know it's a ton. Trust me, after that, but
Yeah.
that moment when she told me that she qualified and I was 13 minutes, I was just like, that's not that much. I'm close. I could see it. I could touch it, right? I can.
Yeah.
It's 30 seconds a mile. I can touch it. I know that's afterwards I realized how tough it is to go from a 7:30 to a 7-minute mile for 26 miles. Like, it's hard. It's not easy. But at that moment I thought, whoa, we're close. Like, Charlie, we're close to qualifying for Boston. And it kind of cheered me up a ton, like, that conversation with that woman.
Yeah. So after I didn't really have a plan. I just I knew that at some point I was going to run another marathon and try to do about 3:15. And then I think at some point we talked and the plans changed, but yeah.
So did you have anything lined up after that for marathon? Did you do the Manitoba Marathon? No.
I did. No. Manitoba Marathon's too hot. And just kidding.
It is in the middle of June. So it ended up being really, really hot that year. So you kind of went into the summer, and we'll get into this in the next episode, but basically you left Vegas blown away by your time, kind of like me, knowing that you had kind of skipped a rung on the ladder, and knowing that your next one, you might get close to Boston, or you might be close, and you were going to do a whole bunch of fun runs in the summer. If I recall, you were going to do some halves. You're going to try a whole bunch of different runs in the summer, right?
I didn't really have a plan at that time. It was just to stay in shape. And then I had a plan that in like 6 months, like October, November, I was going to do another marathon, but I didn't want to start training for it right away. I just wanted to kind of stay in shape for a while. But I didn't really have a plan at that point.
Okay. Yeah. You knew that you were going to do another one in that calendar year.
Yeah.
But
6 months or so.
6 months. You didn't know where. And that meant that the summer was kind of a summer off, not a summer off, because you're running every day or every second, or no, you're running probably 6 days a week even when you
no, I was running every day. I've been
every
running
day?
every day. Yeah. So it's just every once in a while, like 2 or 3 out of those days are like 2 mile, like really short ones. It's like a rest day, but it's just, it keeps me going.
Yeah. Yeah. But you knew that you were gonna kind of figure it out over the summer, do whatever, and then get geared and ready to go for another race. And in the back of your mind, you're probably like, yeah, maybe we'll make a run at this Boston qualifier in October, November, whenever our next run is.
I knew that would be a kind of stretch target. So
Yeah.
yeah. And then you had the Ironman coming up, so you were all focused on that, correct?
I was zoomed, laser focused on that Ironman, and uh, in hindsight, it probably helped me enjoy that marathon in Vegas more because I had not that I had no expectations, but I had no stress. I wasn't putting any stress on myself because, like, I flew in the night before. Like, it's kind of,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, that was fun. That was a fun part of the journey. Those months where I discovered how much I loved my treadmill because you were jogging outside and I was jogging on the treadmill, and it's a lot. I did a lot of miles on that treadmill. Holy smokes. And I still do a lot of miles on that treadmill. Although I did run outside and it was fun. Tons of miles on the treadmill. Okay. So we'll wrap this episode up here. Pretty special time for me anyways in my life. And next episode, we'll lead into kind of the summer months, continue the journey, which is we're going to talk a bit about the Ironman. We're going to talk about the races we did in the summer and what led to our LA marathon. Charlie, anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, listen to us wherever you listen to your podcast. Take a sec to smash the bell. Make sure you're notified when we do put out new content. You're gonna want to know because it's so cool. It's so fun to sit with Rob and Charlie and hear about their running stories. Also, put your comments below if you have any comments about the race that we did, or any comments about training or anything you want to add. We'd love to hear from you. We know how it is, whether you're starting out and you're overweight and you're starting at zero, or whether you're trying to qualify for Boston or you're somewhere in between. We've been there, so we know how it is, and good for you for doing what you're doing, and don't stop. Don't stop. You can do it. It's well worth it, and we are both living proof of that. Life's good when you start the morning with a jog. Life's awesome. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video.